Oh. Hi, hello. Thank you very much for coming. So this is the first time we're going to do this CIVICA data seminar in a hybrid mode. So for the people online, we have here people at Bocconi in person. And so welcome to everyone. Today we have the presentation for this Handbook of Computational Social Science. Our presenter is Eleonora Bertoni. She's a project manager, computational social scientist at the Joint Research Center for the European Commission in ISPRA, and where she worked for the Center of Advanced Studies. The center is focused on building capacity in accessing and analyzing non-traditional data to address specific policy questions. They've been working on this handbook. Previously to join the GRC, Eleonora worked at the Inter-American Development Bank in the education division, working on teachers allocation, economics of education, topics around the topic of education. And previously to that, she also worked in the poverty division at the World Bank, mainly on poverty and education in African countries. She did her PhD in Torino in economics. So Eleonora, you have the room. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alonso. So good afternoon, everyone. As Alonso mentioned, I'm Eleonora Bertoni. I'm a social scientist at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And today I'm here to present a two-year effort, which is the Handbook of Computational Social Science for Policy, which I edited together with the colleagues you see on the slide, Matteo Fontana, Lorenzo Gabrielli, Serena Signorelli, and Michele Vespe, who was actually the project leader of the CSS project. I would like this to be more of a conversation, so feel free to jump in and interrupt me if you have any thoughts or comments that you would like to share. So very brief overview of the talk for today. I'll start off by giving you a few pointers on the JRC so that you will learn a bit more about the institution if you don't know it yet. And I will then introduce the different stages of the Center for Advanced Studies project on CSS4P, so Computational Social Science for Policy. From now on, I will have to say CSS4P or I will lose my breath. So I will give you more details on the project, of which the handbook is one of the main outputs, and we will see together the other ones. Okay. So the JRC, very briefly, plays a very central and key role at multiple stages of the European policy cycle. It contributes to the overall objective of the Horizon Europe, which is the EU key funding program for research and innovation, really works closely with other Commission departments, European institutions and agencies, as well as with scientific partners and such as universities and policy organizations in Europe and internationally. The main scope of the JRC, its main objective is that of offering scientific expertise and competencies from a variety of scientific disciplines, and it supports almost all European policy areas. Just to give you an idea of the geographical locations of the JRC and a bit of the magnitude of the institution, it has its headquarters in Brussels, and it has research centers in 5 member states, so Belgium, Germany, Italy, which is the one where I'm based in ISPRA, the Netherlands and Spain, and it has about 2,800 staff, and 70% of which are scientific and technical staff. You can move. Within the JRC, so there's this very privileged, I would say, institution, which is the Center for Advanced Studies. And the CAS really act as an incubator for forward-looking, promising ideas, and to mainstream these ideas into the JRC institutional work program and into the European policy cycle. So the main features of the CAS projects are those of exploring new ideas in emerging scientific fields, such as, in my case, the one on computational social science. And these projects generally last up to 3 years, after which it will be decided whether they will be mainstreamed into the JRC work program. A little bit of background on this specific project. So I'm part of the CSS4P project with the colleagues you see on the screen. And as you can see from our profile, so there's me, which I'm a social scientist, and we have 2 data scientists, Matteo Lorenzo Serena, which is the data partnership and management officer, and we will see why that figure is important when doing computational social science for policy. Michele Vespe, who was the leader of the project, which is now working as a deputy head of unit in the digital economy unit, and left the leadership of the project to me, which is why I'm basically here today, and not Michele. So we are a pretty multidisciplinary team, and this really embodies the different components of computational social science as we got to know it. So the social science, the data science, and a very important component of data governance. So the aim of the project is that of harnessing the potential that is given by the great amount of data that are made available by the big data revolution to inform the policy cycle. So presentations made. You can go in to more details of the background of the project. Of course, given that most of you are already familiar with the topic, I'll just briefly touch upon some concepts and definitions just to be all on the same page. So what do we mean by computational social science? We want to tackle societal issues through computational modeling approach and by means of non-traditional data. So the 2 main dimensions of the disciplines are, of course, an empirical one, which is based on characterizing the reality using data and some specific type of data, and also a more theoretical component, so trying to make theories about realities and that can be put into test through different modeling approach, such as simulation. There's a very wide range of analytical techniques that are used in the disciplines. Just some of those, machine learning, natural language processing, social network analysis, and from the point of view of simulation, agent-based models and microsimulations. Why, after understanding what is computational social science, why we want to go down the road. So after the big data revolution, which is not really a novelty anymore, an unprecedented capability to store and analyze data became available to social scientists. This goldmine of information about social behavior and interaction is usually stored and secretly held by private providers. So the computational social science disciplines really try to tap into that goldmine of information and make them available for the society at large. And up to now, we would say that the discipline and what came out from the discipline, so the outcomes of that are mainly not only pilot studies, but studies as well, but are mainly confined in the academic realm. So the idea of the discipline is that of why not trying to harness this power and to help the policy cycle. So given that the social sciences were traditionally maybe been the most data poor science, And people were even wondering, is there even science? And now it's actually in the position to have this really huge mass of data available and able to explain a complex society through that. So in this context, the Computational Social Science for Policy project was born. And now I will give you a little bit of the ideas of which have been the steps that we followed in this CSS4P journey. The first step, and then a necessary one, is to identify the stakeholders, the necessary stakeholders that need to be on board for the discipline to be useful and successful for policy. So we really started off by identifying the stakeholders. On one side, of course, you see the JRC, which is in a privileged position to be at the science and policy interface. I haven't gone into much details of the JRC, but the institution is really in touch with all the policy directorate generals of the European Commission. So it's really in between what happens between the scientists and the policies. A lot of the research that comes out from the JRC really informs European policies. So on one side, there's the institution, of course. On the other side, the private sector, in light of their ownership of most of non-traditional data available out there. And also external experts and academia in different fields of reference, as computational social science is really a multidisciplinary field, as we will see in a second. And this interaction could really complement the in-house contribution from the JRC scientists. So indeed, it's really, we deem it's really important to promote the accumulation and verification of knowledge. We need to avoid that the computational social science becomes either an exclusive domain of private companies and also or government agencies, or that of privileged academic researchers that really produce papers, but that they're not used to inform policy. So how we decided to try and foster this interaction. I've seen some movement. I don't know if there are things in the chat, but I guess you're checking on that. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So again, how did we foster the interaction between the stakeholders? So we started to, we went a little bit in reverse to what is usually done in social science or in science more generally, or in research, if we want, more recently, that the tendency is that of starting with a very interesting data set and then trying to figure out research questions that could be relevant and extract them from the data. We try to start from the demand side. So what is that the policy really needs, what is really relevant for policy. And we figure that, again, given the privileged position of the JRC, we could actually ask the policy side what is relevant and what is needed out there, and translate those needs into policy and research questions with the help of JRC researchers. So what you see here and what I will present in a second is a huge multidisciplinary effort that involved over 60 experts within the JRC and the policy DG. And what we did, we first identified a set of relevant topics. We identified a set of relevant topics coming from literature review of experiences in computational social science, and also from the experience of JRC researchers. And we figured that within the JRC, we really did have the expertise in most of those fields, if not all of them. And we figured that the topics that are relevant for CSS and for CSS for policy out there really mapped into three main dimensions. So you had a whole set of foundational issues, such as which are the enablers for computational social science, the data governance, data justice, and of course the ethical principle in the usage of CSS, especially when you use that for policy and to implement policy that will ultimately affect citizens. A set of methodological aspects, as I said in the beginning, there's really a wide variety of models that could be used in the disciplines. And of course, a set of more applied issues, which are the ones that ultimately map into the different social policies. So after identifying these topics, what we did was starting this interactive and also iterative process with different scientists at the JRC and also in the policy DG. So we actually asked them to help us map relevant policy questions for each of those topics, and we use this interactive tool, which is a Trello board that one can think about using any other tool that is available out there, where we were fostering a little bit the dialogue between science and policy. So scientists could actually post the research questions up there, and from the policy side, we could have some sort of feedback, and there could be a back and forth to get to an agreed set of policy questions. So this set was actually published as a Science for Policy report within the JRC. And here I just wanted to show you a little bit of an example of the type of exercise we gave to the scientists. So we asked them for each expert, for each field of reference, we asked them to introduce a bit the policy issue and also to provide some policy questions. Here you have three examples from the applied field that we present. One is related to social interactions and social capital, another one on a specific field of education, and another one in digital trace data in migration studies. So this type of exercise was really well received by JRC colleagues. It was a really interesting process to see all this material come together.
Sorry, I need to fix something with the audio.
Yeah, I'm sure that
No. The thing is, it's sorry.
Very low.
Because of no. Yeah, there's like back noise. So maybe
Coming from the air? Maybe?
No, from the, I think the movements on the table. But no, we cannot fix it. Okay.
I'll try not to move too much.
maybe I can change. Maybe I can change the slides myself. So you.
Because I have to switch the slide. I don't know. I can try to stay still ish if I can.
I can change the slides.
Okay.
That sense.
Yes. You want to use this or the keyboard? Sorry about that. But I hope you could hear anyway.
You tell me.
Yes, we can change it. That was just an example of the exercise that we did, and of course in the publication you can find many more. So the next step, after collecting all the policy questions, the natural way to go is we have all those questions. Let's try to provide some programmatic answers. Yes, you can change. And there is where the handbook was born. So I just have a hard copy here for the lucky ones who are in presence. I don't know if Alonso just wants to pass it around. Of course, it's on open access publications and you can find it on Springer anyway. With this great amount of policy questions, we again went back to each field and identified external experts, this time experts also in computational methods. And we asked them to help us answer those questions by means of non-traditional data and computational methods. Why that? Is that necessary? We do think that, of course, CSS really gives a lot of opportunities for policy to be developed more efficiently, not ultimately because of the great availability of data, but also because those data are definitely more timely. And this could shorten the different timing of science and policy. We know as scientists from the time we actually come up with the questions, we get the data and we go on by analyzing the data and retrieve some policy recommendation. Maybe the government has already changed or the policy process has already passed by, and so the timing there is it's a big issue. And apart from the timing, of course, the cost is important because we can have this great amount of data for in a timely way, but also in a less costly way, which is always well received by policymakers. As I mentioned, the book is stemming from this first great exercise, and we have around 24 chapters that involve 36 external experts in different disciplines, and it mirrors the structure that I showed you before on the foundational methods and application. You can change that, and of course I'm not going in too much great details on each chapter because the book is out there, is open access, and the authors did a great job in trying to be as precise as possible and also as transparent as possible in also the limitations of the application of CSS for policy. But I will just give you some take-home messages from each part. For now, I think it would be interesting to start digesting the great amount of information that is provided by the book. So on the foundational side, we do see that CSS research, of course, has to be performed ethically, taking into account strong social justice perspective. This seems obvious, but let me tell you that, and even from the chapter, from the first section, you will see that it's not the case, especially when you apply it to the policy cycle. And interestingly, I was having a discussion, I think today with Nicolò, Alonso, and other colleagues, that there is this emergence of specific professional figures as well, which are the data steward. And as I mentioned before, in our team, Serena Signorelli is the person who is actually embodying this new professional figure, and this is extremely important given the amount of data transaction between the private and the public sector. From the methods, of course, we do see a connection with the CSS techniques and specific phases of the policy cycle. Of course, an ex-ante impact assessment and some specific techniques that are applied there, and also in the realm of the ex-post policy evaluation. Other interesting insights that come from the second part is that of the necessity of the openness of the data processing and modeling techniques, and also the replicability of findings used for policy purposes, and the ability to communicate uncertainty in policy making. This is a really important step. I think one of the examples that was given there was related also to the period of the COVID-19, when there was the necessity to communicate certain levels of risks, and that were to which some, of course, policy actions were developed, and that, of course, there's a necessity that in that dialogue, the uncertainty is communicated in a certain way. As for the last bit of the book, in the application, we do see a really high level of heterogeneity in the adoption of CSS across disciplines. So notable examples are in the field of macroeconomics forecasting, where there already are advanced forecasting models using non-traditional data, which have been used to inform the economic policy during the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are few examples there also coming from studies published by our colleagues at the GRC. Also, the labor market intelligence is really another really developed field of application of CSS through, for example, text mining on job advertisement data. Other fields instead, they are still in their infancy, although they present a great deal of potential for policy, such as mobility, with respect to both sustainability aspects and analysis of human mobility patterns. And those are all fields that are covered in the book. So the objective of the book, as I already mentioned during my talk, is that to be sort of a reference for definitions and concepts related to CSS4P, and also to provide a mapping as the most comprehensive as possible mapping of different fields of application, to serve as a stimulus for continuous science for policy dialogue, and also to raise awareness on all the potential and limitation of CSS in a policy context. And then after, let's say, doing all our homework, the third step in our process is that of developing some policy application ourselves. So as a final, in the final part of my talk, I would like to give you just a couple of examples of the policy applications in which we are working right now. And this is not part of the book, and they're all projects that have just started. But I think again, it could be interesting for you to know a bit more about our current research lines. So we selected a few topics, let's say maybe to us the most promising topics from the exercise that we did with the Handbook, and we started working on topics related to migration by using OpenStreetMap data point of interest, and we can look at that in a second. And also Serena, so as in her powers of data steward, she helped us retrieve data from the company that is administering the data for Immobiliare. Of course, we can go into more details on whether web scraping is a practice that is as efficient as this one. We can say it's definitely cheaper, but maybe it has some other issues that at the level of the European Commission is not that clear that we can go down that road. And then as a third, so we use Immobiliare, Airbnb, and TripAdvisor data, and we're working with the unit that works on territorial development, on the impact of tourism on different real estate market outcomes. And as a third research lines, we are developing we are expanding, the European business to government data sharing taxonomy, because as I mentioned, the whole realm of B2G data sharing and data governance is paramount in the CSS.
Yes.
Just a question on the first line. What proxy migration are you using?
So we are using the net migration rate that was computed by the unit E5 on demography and migration. They compute net migration rate between 2019 and 2011 by factoring in mortality rates. And this is a measure that was developed by the unit at the JRC.
How are you connecting those things?
So this one are done at the NUTS 3 level, so below the municipal level, at European level. Municipal level for all your EU 27 countries. Sorry. That can be done. I mean, the technical, let's say the technical part of it was done by Lorenzo Gabrielli, who is the data scientist in our team, and he managed to manage. It's doable. You can map the point of interest there at the municipal level, and we had those migration rates at the municipal level as well. And then we can go into more details on, for example, of course, on the limitation of the OpenStreetMap data. I mean, now we are entering, if we have a few more minutes, I think we can just give a couple of more details on each project. So the specific of this one, the idea here is to try and scout out there again. This was a project that was, let's say, assigned to us, and we are also there to help and support research that is already ongoing within the JRC, which is divided in different thematic units. So in this case, there's a specific unit working on demography and migration topics, and they were trying to find ways to also look for alternative measures of pull factors of either of migrants by different age groups. So they were thinking, well, why don't we try and see whether specific features of local territories or municipality, such as the supply of specific services, serve as pull factors of different age group of migrants. We have very preliminary results on this, and we are trying to see a more clearer picture of course, the populations of more urban areas where, sorry, a higher concentration of younger age groups and family in more urban areas where specific amenities, as they're called in the data set, are concentrated. Amenities, but also the supply of public services such as education and services, while we do see maybe a concentration of older age groups in areas where the presence of health care facilities and also tourism spots are there, and this is a bit related to what they're studying as the Florida effect. And again, this is pretty preliminary, so that just to put out there all the limitations of the data. Of course, these are user-generated data, and so of course they underrepresent rural areas. And what we try to do there is a buffer analysis that assigns higher weights to rural municipalities that are closer to urban areas that actually present the feature, and that this weight is of course descending for areas that are geographically farther away from the presence of service. We can look at the other type of application that we are trying to look at. So the territorial development unit has been working on the impact of what is called the phenomenon of touristification for a while now, and we started this project by acquiring immobiliare data for the area of Milan, and because we wanted to see in the beginning, we wanted to see whether there were changes in the demand for housing as a consequence of COVID-19. As we were developing the research, we know there are colleagues at the Bank of Italy who have been working on this for a while, and so we decided to move a little bit away of the COVID-19 literature to embark into the one on tourism. Which wasn't in the plan originally, but it actually became one of the most interesting pieces of work we're working on. So some lines of research that we are developing entail, one is more directly related to the effect of short-term rental platform on real estate prices, selling and rental prices. As well as, and this is related to the topics of livability in the supply of services for local residents. We are doing that for Italy and France. And also we're thinking to develop this mixed method research also by including some qualitative analysis on local residents' perceptions, because some of the most recent literature is looking at the effect of over-tourism or touristification on mental health and distress. And this is super interesting and is done mainly on a qualitative base. And so we are thinking to develop a survey to look at this as well. And finally, just a lot of information. Take what you think is more interesting for you. But this is the third piece of work, and as I mentioned, it's an expansion of taxonomy that is already existing, which is the European Taxonomy of Public Services, which tries to identify all the and characterize all the data sharing initiatives and organize the data sharing initiatives that are out there, and that will have to comply with all the different B2G situations. So what we did was our proposal stemming from the original taxonomies that to include a set of attributes which we think are important in the definition of this type of data transaction between public and private sector. I have just, some self-promotion. We also have a competing seminar series. It's a seminar series that is stemming from the chapters of the Handbook. So we think that it could be interesting to further disseminate the work. So we asked some of the authors of the Handbook to participate in the seminar series, and we have these 3 seminars coming up in June, 1 in July. One on education, natural language processing, and also one more specific on the old data governance issues. And I would of course share the link for you to participate. It's just the final one, the past events. We had a really interesting one on the project on social connectedness, a few scholars developing a social connectedness index from Facebook data for the US, and then projects on digital computational demography and on social media contribution to crisis management processes, and which you can find a record online in case you're interested. They were all recorded. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Eleonora. For the people in the room and the people online, they can ask questions through the chat. So in the meantime, no, not yet. So if you have any questions here in the room,
I would have a question, Eleonora. Can you say something about how and if these efforts that have been undertaken for 2 years at the JRC fit within like a strategic position of the European Commission? I know you cannot speak for the European Commission, overall, but do you feel that there is, or do you know whether there is a strategy of the European Commission to use computational social science methods for policy making, or is this more of like a standalone effort where you're trying to convince policymakers that that's a way to go? You're just kind of trying to learn about the field. Like, how do you place your effort within a more strategic European level approach to policy, modern, let's say, policy making?
Should I reply? Are we taking a minute? Okay. Yeah, no, sure. If you want. Yes, so now there are maybe two aspects related to this. So one is that, as I mentioned in the beginning, these CAST projects are really incubators of new ideas. That's the main objective of the Center for Advanced Studies, to bring novel competencies and ideas and novel skills within the JRC. So the direction really goes outside in. So we think we can see it as coming from the outside, trying to bring a novel discipline or novel skills and competencies within the institution, and try from there to spur a dialogue with the policymakers. So it wasn't really something that came from, it came more bottom up that the other way around. At the same time, so we know that there are among the priorities of the Commission, there's definitely the one to increase digital skills of the population. So the topic, maybe one of the more prolific and also important topic right now for the Commission is that of the digital and green transition. And so at least the digital aspect is really important, and at the same time the aspect related to, again, data governance. I mean, the Commission is not blind it's not blind when it comes to knowing that data sources, novel data sources are out there that can be used and that can actually be used in an effective way. The thing that the Commission, of course, will try to do is use them in the most regulated way possible, and that could, of course, hinder innovation. We can talk a lot about this aspect, but this would be, I think, the position of the Commission and the way that this competence entered the institution.
So I have one question here from Sophia. She asked if you see a role for the civil society organizations like think tanks into this policy process.
So definitely more than in this policy process. So in here we are always talking about, let's say, applied research, or we're talking about this interface that I mentioned before between science and policy. So maybe we always look at a more direct link between what the science is doing and what the science for policy is doing. So for the policy institution, we definitely see a role in terms of the outcomes from the policy cycle directed to the civil society, not necessarily civil society organization and civil society as a whole. There are, I think we mentioned, I think I can go back just if you look at the topics that we had here. When you look at the all topics related to data justice, that is really where we do see the civil society coming in, and also a more direct link between civil society and policy making there. So that's definitely where we touch upon the issue, at least in the book.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if you could tell us more about also the interaction with politicians and policymakers. So my impression is that more at the international, supranational level, there is some interest perhaps in first in policy evaluation, and then in using advanced techniques to improve, to have a better evaluation of policy. But more at the local level or national level, sometimes I think it's more difficult to make politicians understand that some approaches and techniques could be useful to actually to improve the lives of people. So you can think about all policies that are driven at the local level. Very few of them go through a process of policy evaluation. So what is your interaction? Your idea. So you think there is a demand from the policy side, and if there is not, how can you push for more interest on the other side?
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, of course, we, as an institution of the European Commission, we don't really get that granular, let's say at a local level or where, policies at local level are implemented. But of course, there's a huge interest for what is the old side of foresight. So, for example, within the JRC, there are different, they are called competence centers, which are focused on policy foresight. And also one of the main features of the JRC strategy is that of trying to anticipate policy need, and that is definitely something that comes from the interaction with the policy directorate general. So I haven't really spoke about the structure of the different components below the commission, but the JRC is directly in touch with different policy directorate generals, and they really supervise policies in different fields. So you have, for example, DG Home that supervise all the policies related to migration and demography, and that for other DG Employment and so forth. And really the attention there and the effort that is asked to the JRC is that of anticipating policy need, and also to develop what I mentioned before, this ex-ante impact assessment, and those are also done at a more local level. As of now, they've mainly been done through administrative data, but the JRC is starting to, which maybe comes after other institutions that are already doing that, but trying to do those the anticipating processes through the usage of novel data, and that is something that is of interest and also a priority for the policy DGs.
I have one other question from Nima. The question is if the book discussed the paradigm of data analysis from the statistics until machine learning, or something, or like major difference between them, or it just goes strictly direct to the transition to machine learning process?
No, there's definitely, thank you for the question, because the chapter on data innovation for official statistics, which is definitely the one, Nina, you should look at. That is a chapter that was co-authored by my colleagues as I was on maternity leave, but that is something that we work together on with Eurostat. So definitely also at the level of European agencies such as Eurostat, there is already an interest in integrating novel data sources and also novel techniques in official statistics as well.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, so thank you very much. So with this, we are ending the CIVICA seminars for the year. So we are having a summer break, and we will start again next year with this CIVICA data science seminar. So thank you very much for all the people online. Thank you very much for the people that came here in person to Bocconi. Thank you for Eleonora for presenting. It's very interesting, the project, and yeah, we look forward to see all these other results on this more
Coming up.
specific coming up
Thank you.
research. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.